In this video, we're going to show you to install the shock on your Nissan Quest located behind your rear wheels. Using a 21mm socket, loosen and remove your lug nuts. With the lug nuts removed, loosen and remove the wheel, set it aside. With the wheel removed, we can gain access to the upper portion of our shock assembly here. There are two studs, one here and one on the other side. These are 13mm nuts on here. Now I did spray them down with some rust penetrant. I'm going to use our socket and ratchet to loosen and remove these nuts. We're just going to switch over to our power tool here to speed things up. On our bottom bolt here, this is our 18mm, goes through the lower control arm and it goes through our shock. The other side is a fixed nut. It is welded onto the control arm, so we only have to focus on this bolt right here. We did spray it down with some rust penetrant. We're going to work this back and forth because it is a little bit rusty. Got to remove that bolt. You know, at this point here, we can simply grab our shock assembly. We're going to wiggle it up and pull it up through the top. Our next step is we need to go ahead and remove this center nut so we can remove the bearing carrier unit here and the rubber boot and install our new shock. Now the reason we're replacing our rear shock, you can clearly see that the seal has blown and is leaking hydraulic fluid out of the unit. Now if we go to the top side of it, right here we have the upper bearing plate that allows us to move a little bit, and this has an 18mm nut on the top. You want to get it loosen and remove that. Now we're using an 18mm box wrench on the bottom, and we have a pair of locking pliers on the top to grab the top. You don't want to pinch the threads because that's going to damage the threads and not allow you to take the nut off. And I want to go ahead and hold the center shaft of the shock and go ahead and spin this. You're going to have to unlock and lock once in a while to readjust. And we're just holding that center portion of that shaft from spinning so we can loosen that nut. Once you get that nut up high enough, you should be able to switch over to an open end wrench over here. We'll just use the drop to get it down inside the bearing unit itself. And then when we use an open end, it'll just kind of speed things up. Install the upper bearing cap on the shock. Go to install the nut. I'm just going to reverse the procedure for the installation here. Going to grab the upper portion. So inside of the bearing cap is a metal sleeve. So what we really want to do is just tighten down this nut and make sure it's good and snug. There we go. Let's go ahead and install our assembly into the vehicle. Just go ahead and feed the shock down through the back side and lower it down. And once you get down there, go ahead and put your bolt in. And we'll get that started a few threads. Now we're not going to tighten this down until we get the upper portion installed, and then we're going to compress our suspension to a neutral ride height, tighten and torque the lower bolt. Install the nuts. Now sometimes you have to use a jack underneath your suspension to go ahead and lift this up into place. We definitely want to get these nuts started by hand, a few threads. We're going to torque the upper nuts here to 17 foot-pounds. Now the reason why we have our suspension jacked up to our neutral ride height is that the inside here has a metal sleeve and a rubber bushing. Now if we tighten this with it all the way drooped and then we compress the suspension, it would want to twist and torque that rubber bushing and metal sleeve, not giving the proper ride conditions. With the suspension compressed all the way up, we can go ahead and snug this down. And then we're going to torque it down to 81 foot-pounds. We can now lower our jack and then install our wheel. Repeat this process for the other side. Go ahead and install your wheel. You want to go ahead and start all of your lug nuts by hand. That'll prevent cross-threading of the studs. Once you have them all started, go ahead and snug them down. Ideally, you want to do this in a crisscross pattern. Go ahead and torque down your lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. We're going to do this in a crisscross pattern. At that point there, you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.